Hi, this is Colleen with Chats with Colleen. We are so glad that you were here joining us this week for our biweekly podcast. This week we have Willie Oyola. Also, his original or birth given name is Guillermo. He goes by Willie. He lives in the panhandle of Florida with his wife, where they run a real estate business where they help others who need out of a bad situation or help others just achieve success with lending money and investing in real estate. They have a really interesting story. They actually met in Japan and had their two kids in Japan and moved back to the US. So I was really intrigued by that. Anybody who lives overseas and has kids and is exposed to other culture, it's really just intriguing to me. So we had a great conversation. He's got vast information to help people in the real estate world. And he's kind of does it different. He sticks to just particular areas that he's comfortable with in the state, which I think is kind of unique because a lot of investors that I deal with will kind of just go anywhere. Most of them, not all, but they'll go in other states, other cities, wherever they can find the deal. And he likes to stay in certain areas of the Panhandle and certain areas of Central Florida because he really knows those markets. So I think that is really helpful for him and his wife to become more knowledgeable in those areas that they work, but it also helps others who they're trying to help because they know it like the back of their hand and it just helps them. So it was really intriguing, really great. And I'm so thankful that he joined us. Also, if any of you would like to join us or know anybody who would like to join us at any time, please reach out. We're open to all types of stories, professions, anybody that wants to share and help others. Again, this is about you. We appreciate you and your time. Thank you and have a great day. Hi, this is Colleen with Chats with Colleen, and today I am here with Willie Oyola. Can you correct me if I said your name correctly?
Oyola.
Oyola. Okay, I knew I was going to be wrong.
Oyola.
Oh, I knew I was going to butcher that. So I thank you for correcting me. If you could just give me a brief introduction about your name and what you do and how people can get in contact with you.
Yeah, so I'm Willie Oyola. I'm based out of the Panhandle in Florida, Northwest Florida, Fort Walton Beach area. Primarily, we do, fix and flip, some ground up construction, long-term rentals, buy subject to, different creative financing, and we raise private money. And yeah, people can find me I'm on Instagram. I think it's at Willie Oyola, Willie Oyola. And Facebook, obviously, you could look me up. Where else? And our website, which is rnrpropertysolutions.com.
Nice. Thank you. Now, how long have you been in real estate?
So we started, I would say, well, we bought our first rental property, like our first official rental property in 2015.
Mhm.
But if I rewind back to 2012, it was actually when I first bought a property, but I didn't really know that what I was doing. I kind of accidentally got into real estate and it exposed me to it. So in 2008, 2009, the market crashed and in Central Florida, as you know, houses were so cheap, like rock bottom cheap in some of these areas of Orlando. And my parents were looking at eventually retiring down there, but they couldn't buy a home at the time because they still had their house in DC and they were still working. But we wanted to get into the real estate there because they knew that, man, it's going up. These houses are cheap. We need to get in there now because they're starting to creep up. So they kind of, urged me, hey, you've got some extra cash. You're just blowing it all. I wasn't really doing anything with my money productively. So I was like, all right, cool, sure, whatever. Didn't know what I was doing, wired the funds, had a closing, and next thing you know, I bought my first property. Wasn't making money off of it. I just put the down payment and held the mortgage for them. And then 2015 was when we really got into it because we saw how it was going up. And then 2015, 16, it just kept going up. And that's where we're at now. We're just continuing in investing.
Wow. So you didn't even know that you were going to get into it when you first bought the house, basically.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I never thought in 2012, definitely, I never thought that I'd have a portfolio of rentals and I'd be doing it full time. Because I was a government contractor and I was actually living in Okinawa, Japan. I was in Japan. My wife is Okinawan. All three of my kids were born in Japan. I was out there for 10 years. So we bought our first three properties while we were in Japan. But luckily back then when we bought it in 2012, 2015, 16, housing prices were a lot lower, interest rates were a lot lower, and it was cash flowing. Properties were, basically just paying for themselves, a couple $100, and but they kept going up, and that's what kind of kept piquing my interest, and I kept looking at it, and that's how we just decided to go all in.
That leads me to my next question. Before you got into real estate, what career fields were you in?
Oh
You were a
yeah,
government
so
contractor.
yeah, I was a government contractor, so I'm a former USMC Marine. I was in the Marine Corps,
Oh,
and I was stationed in Japan, and I got out of the Marine Corps while I was stationed in Japan because I got another job as a contractor. And at the time, it was, '08, '09 happened, and it was crazy, hectic situation in the States. But as a government contractor, it really didn't really affect us because, we had jobs. We were on base, working on base, whatever contracts. And I was just living life, having a good time. And, slowly but surely, got married, had kids. And then along the way, we picked up some rentals.
so you lived in Japan, you said for how long? 10 years?
Yes, 10 years.
Oh, wow. Can you speak Japanese?
Not the way I should. I understand uh, quite a bit words and I can speak some, but not the way I should because when I was over there, I worked mostly on base with the military. And but I did learn a lot when the kids were born. When the kids were born, their first languages was just Japanese, so that's all they would speak. So I would pick up a lot of words from them.
That's really neat. I haven't heard anybody else that can understand Japanese. So I think that's really incredible. So you got led into real estate by buying properties, potentially not really realizing it because you got really good deals, right? With the '08 crash when most of us lost them. People were able to take advantage and pick up really good deals. And then,
Yeah.
which is incredible. I know there were houses being sold for like $50,000, That's amazing. And I know a lot of people were thinking like what happened then was going to happen now.
Right.
Yeah, they were waiting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a different situation, different reasons that it crashed back then. And there's still a lot of people that have serious PTSD from that.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have serious PTSD from that. I know a lot of folks and friends, family members that didn't have so great experiences. But, and
Mhm.
it's funny because, well, it's not funny, but I'm saying like it's odd because when I got into it, I wasn't thinking, oh yeah, this is an opportunity. I'm gonna ride this wave and get into these houses all cheap. I was just thinking, okay, cool. Well, let me put my money here. I didn't even understand cash flow. I didn't understand return on investment, any of that stuff. But my parents told me, they were like, hey, buy these houses. Look, like we bought in Deltona, Florida, Deltona, DeBary, West Volusia County, which was even cheaper than a lot of parts of Orlando. But they were like, just buy. Look, you can get houses for 20 grand, 30 grand, like beautiful block homes in some parts of Deltona. And then they were like, just put 20% down. At the time, it was not a whole lot of money, maybe 20 grand, if that, 30 grand. And as a contractor on base, I was making pretty good income. And it was right before well, actually, my kids were about to be born. But since my wife was Japanese, she was on the Japanese healthcare system and all that stuff. So I didn't have to, they had all sorts of assistance for families over there. So I had extra income, disposable income. So that's what I was like, all right, well, let's put this money to work because I wasn't putting it to work the correct way. I was more like blowing it all and doing stupid stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's how we got into it.
Wow. Well, you're in the Panhandle, you said, which is in some parts of Florida is an hour behind us. We learned that this morning, which I knew that,
Yeah.
but I kind of forgot. But can you serve the whole state and other states too with your real
Yeah.
estate? Mhm.
Right now we're so specific to Volusia County,
Okay.
just West Volusia County, not even Daytona or that area of the beaches. It's just West Volusia County and Okaloosa County, which is where we live. And the reason we're so specific to those areas because I work a lot with private lenders, private money, and I have to be a good steward of my private lenders' funds because they're entrusting us with their, life savings, retirement accounts, their kids' college fund. And I have to know exactly the market and then the numbers in those areas because I'm so into the market here in Okaloosa and West Volusia. I know where to buy at. I know what prices I gotta pay. I know what I could rent it for. I know what I could refinance it for. I've got appraisals. I got rentals. I've got all the data I need to know to safely buy properties, whether it's fix and flip them, fix and rent them, or maybe do new construction. So I have to be selective on where I'm investing.
That's really smart because a lot of people will just do it anywhere, wherever they can find the deal. And then I think that's probably how they get into trouble because they're not so, versed with the real estate market in Pennsylvania versus, Orlando area. And they could really mess themselves up. I think it's good to just be in certain areas.
Absolutely. And to add to that, as an investor, I'm involved in specifically here in Okaloosa County. We're in the Chamber of Commerce, Rotary, different community organizations, city town hall meetings. So we know what's coming, we know what's happening, we know what's developing. So that's a more reason to invest where you know the best.
Right. Exactly. I agree. Now, are you a realtor?
I am licensed. I am licensed. My wife is also licensed, but we don't do traditional buying and selling with buyers or sellers. But my wife will occasionally maybe list the house or help somebody if it's a friend of a friend, like a referral. But we're not actively doing that. No.
Smart because you have the license, so you're, educated, and it's more or less when people come to you for advice, you can actually give them that advice legally. So
Exactly.
mm, it's important. Now, as far as the real estate market, what do you think is the biggest challenge today?
The biggest challenge today in the real estate market. I would say finding deals where the numbers actually work and make sense.
Yeah,
And staying focused because there's a lot of distraction out there. There's a lot of, and with that distraction, there's people that are putting information out there that makes it seem like it's easy to do,
oh,
but
yeah,
it's very difficult to find those good deals at a deep discount. It takes a lot of time, effort, and money too. You do need to have some money. I mean, you can do it without, but then you're going to have to really work a lot harder. So there's a lot of misinformation, I think.
yeah,
Probably the biggest thing. Like I really hate it. I see all this stuff on social media, and my wife, we argue about this sometimes, but it gives kind of a false sense of hope and some of the things are not 100% true. They're only showing the good side of real estate investing, and it doesn't always work like that. That's not the truth. Yeah, it may
mm,
be true on one or two deals,
but
but
not.
it's not all the time.
That's true. I agree with that. A lot of times they make it seem like it's so easy. And I talk to people from all over the state, all over the country that are getting into real estate. They're so eager, and I can always tell when they bought a course or they went to some seminar because they're all hyped up and I'm going to do this, and you can just hear it. And I'm like, oh, calm down, calm down, because I know, like, I see people, especially now, they bought, houses for super expensive, probably last year or the year before. And now they're still trying to sell them, trying to get rid of them, and they overbought, they overpaid, and you just know after seeing this, I mean, not as extreme of 08, 09, what everybody lost, but just how it went down and it's slowing down and they weren't prepared, to hold on to these houses for this amount of time, you know?
Exactly.
So, yeah,
Yeah, like you mentioned, they bought at a high, like another over here where we're at. We're in the Panhandle, so there's a lot of beaches and there's a lot of Airbnb, short-term rentals. A lot
yes,
of people flooded this market here, and we were one of them. We bought one, then we bought two more quickly, but the other two that we bought, fix them up and put them into service as an Airbnb because we did the fix and flip process. So we have a lot of money invested in those properties, but we're able to weather the storm. We're able to, I think last year maybe we broke even. This year we probably maybe make be positive. But it's all about being able to weather the storm and offset your losses because it's a
Mhm.
business. Real estate is a business. Short-term rental is just one aspect of it. It's not, don't just do that and think you're going to be financially free. No.
No. It's a
But
lot of work with a short-term rental because you got to do
oh
the
yeah.
bookings, the cleaning, you got to keep it stocked up, you got to keep it advertising. I mean, it's a business. It's like a hotel motel, and people, yeah, you can make money, but it's cost a ton.
Oh yeah, I've seen so many people already looking at. I mean, we see them here. When they post them for sale here in our area in Fort Walton Beach, Destin, this area, and we can tell. Oh yeah, this used to be a short-term rental because we used to see it all the time on Airbnb because we're seeing the market and stuff like that, and they're quickly selling them because they bought them. They did a cash out refinance at a high 7%, maybe 8% interest rate, and they can't weather the storm. I know this because we're at that position, but we are able to weather that and hold on long enough to where we can cash out in a few years or maybe refinance or the income starts coming in. So it just takes
Make it
time.
balance out. Yeah, it is. It's a balancing act. With the challenges that many people are seeing, what can you help in any way to these people that may be experiencing a challenge with their real estate, such as their home or their rental properties? What services could you offer to them?
Right. So that's one thing we're so passionate about is serving our community, serving this area, whether it's here, whether it's West Volusia. We love to help people figure out how to get out of that situation they're in with their house. We've helped people. We do a lot of pre-foreclosures, divorces, um, inherited houses, or maybe the one of the spouses is in a nursing home and the other one passes. So we provide them solutions that traditional real estate agents may not know or may not be able to help them fully because they're so used to following a process for listing a house for sale and all this and that. Whereas we could offer them those quick cash offers, stress free. Our mantra is stress free real estate, our business. We offer stress free real estate, whether it's our sellers looking to sell fast for cash and just get out of their situation, or our private lenders that want to put their money to work in something more secure and reliable for a fixed rate of return, stress free for them. A lot of folks don't realize that you don't have to be the landlord, you don't have to be a fix and flipper or property manager. You could just loan your money out to real estate operators and they'll put your money to work secured and collateralized by that real estate for a known and reliable fixed rate of return. And because that cash we use to cash out those distressed property owners that need to move on. So that's one thing we're real passionate about is serving those folks with different solutions.
So you talk about the private helping people raise, private capital and help people with money find constructive ways to lend out that money risk free, well, as risk free as possible, and make some in return. Would somebody get in contact with you about doing that if they had some money that they wanted to lend? And how much money does somebody actually need?
Right. So normally, and actually I have my shirt on,
I
private money
see it.
teacher.
Yeah.
So what we do is we put on our teacher hat or our teacher shirt and we educate. So whenever there's somebody that's interested in potentially getting into real estate and they have cash to deploy, may not be the best bet to try to buy a rental because they'll have to put 20% down. Could be a large sum of cash, could be up to 100 grand. Then there's the interest rates. It's not going to be a good ROI, return on investment for them. So that's what we teach them our private lending program. We teach them how they could put that money to work. And it's as simple as reaching out to us on social media, emailing us, calling us. I'm posting all the time educational information on LinkedIn, on my personal Facebook. My wife's posting constantly on our Instagram about how we work with private lenders and how we're helping them. So that's how a lot of people realize what they can do. Matter of fact, yesterday I just had a private lender luncheon here in our area at a local golf club. What's it called? Golf course restaurant. And we're just educating and sharing what we're doing. And from there, people, they want to discuss more, and we'll see what's best for them.
That's great. Yeah, because I know there's a lot of people who want to get into real estate. Like, I want to get back into it, but I don't really have like the time, because I work all the time
Right.
doing insurance and other stuff. But I would like to maybe utilize some of my cash in a different way. So that's
Exactly.
really a good idea for
Exactly.
anybody. Hmm.
Exactly. Because I know that's the thing. Most private lenders, or all my private lenders, some of them never heard of private money. Some of them may have been a landlord at some point, and or some of them are just they love their job too much and they're just working. They like real estate, but they just don't have the time.
Yeah, for most people. And will you take a private lender from anywhere or only in your areas?
We take private lenders from anywhere, but generally speaking, we first have to build a relationship with them because we like to really understand what their goals are, what they're looking to accomplish, because maybe private lending is not for them. Maybe it is. So that's why we would like to have a sit down, talk one to one first.
So they can understand what they're getting into.
Yeah, exactly. Because they don't realize, they think, oh, is it a partnership? Are we partners? No, it's not a partnership at all. You just sit back and collect checks, and
Right.
we've got the security. As you see on with our homeowners insurance, we put our private lenders on there, whether they're in second or third position. We just make sure that they're secured and collateralized and any liability issues they get covered.
Of course, right, which is important for them. So I know that you mentioned you work with your wife. How does that impact your family life? Do you ever, I know you mentioned you guys argue back and forth about this, but does it impact it too much where you have like a bad day at the office? Where you probably work from home, but in your home office, and then you come out, and do you ever carry that, or are you able to like
Oh, that's
put it
tough.
aside?
Well, to be honest, I do have an office. We have an office at Fort Walton Beach, so I usually go down to the office and work from the office. She's mostly here at home
Hmm.
because she helps out more she does more of the kids and the family stuff,
Hmm.
so I can do the bulk of the investing side of the business. But it's a balancing act. It's tough because there's the work-life balance and then there's relationship. So it's really, really hard working with the spouse.
I
Uh,
bet.
so there's a lot of challenges there. But I guess you can say the silver lining to that is that you can really grow and make your relationship stronger with your spouse if you're working with them because of those challenges that you have. You'll learn how to navigate and communicate better, which in turn will help out with your, outside of work thing.
Yeah, it's true. Because I worked with my parents, and so my parents worked together for a long time, and I worked with them, and it was like, and watching my parents work together for a long time, she'd be like, ah. But it was, and half the time he would like leave the office, so it was just us. But it always cracks me up when I see other people that, who are married, because I saw it from the outside with my parents, and I was their daughter. So sometimes I could see it too, that they would take it home and he would be like giving her the silent treatment because he was still mad at her or whatever. But it did help them. And they were married for like 50 something years. So yeah, it is great. I think if you can do it and you can handle it without wringing each other's necks, keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool that you actually work. And I hope my kids eventually want to work in our business with us, which I'm sure one of them at least will.
One of them. That's how one out of the three for us. How many
Yeah,
children do you have?
we
Mhm.
have three.
Oh, three. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
so
And how old are
13,
they?
12, 13, 12, and 8.
Oh, that's a handful. The
Yeah.
eight-year-old is really fun. The 12 and 13-year-old is probably very stressful for you, I
Yeah,
bet.
it is. It is. But I mean, they know what we do in our business. They're all involved in our business. They go to our houses. They help us out at our private lender luncheons. I got them name tags now, so
Ah,
I make them dress up. Well, I try to get them to dress up a little bit. So they'll pass out things at the private lender luncheon. They'll have us set up. So it's a family thing. I mean,
it's
just try to teach them some good work ethics.
yeah, it's not about the responsibility of home ownership and money and stuff. I think that's really neat. That's really interesting.
Oh yeah, we teach them about private money and how it works and everything like that. And they try to private lend to each other, the sisters, like, oh, I'll give you $20, but you gotta pay me back 25 or something like that.
Well, learning. I like that. That's good. I wish somebody taught me about that when I was in my early teens, that I wouldn't have made so many mistakes in my early 20s.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. Um, so I want to leave off here is what do you think is, well, I actually wanted to ask you about subject to. I know that you do a lot of that, and I know it's becoming more and more popular, but what mistakes do you see people making who are trying to do that, not educated about it correctly?
The biggest issue I have is, I mean, nothing against wholesalers. I work with a lot of wholesalers.
Mhm.
Is especially here, I see it sometimes, and even I see it in Central Florida too. They try to wholesale subject to. Wholesaling, yeah, wholesaling subject, I would not do that. That's you're doing a disservice to the seller, the original borrower, putting a lot of risk on them. You're gonna, at
Yes,
the end, a lot of people look bad if you can't close the deal. And that's the biggest one is wholesaling subject to. I would not tell any wholesaler to wholesale a subject to unless you're subject to wholesaling it to me because you know I'm going to close and I'm going to build that relationship with that seller and get all those documentations in place and disclosures. But yeah, they try to do that and it's not a good return on investment if you're the end buyer because there's wholesale fee whatever you're paying, if you got to pay any arrears or pay the seller, then if there's any, whatever that spread is between the monthly payment, and if you're going to keep it as a rental, it may not be a good return on investment. So,
it doesn't sound that way. I didn't even realize wholesalers were getting involved in those now.
oh yeah, yeah, that's pretty big, and I get in these groups and I see them wholesaling houses in like Deltona, Orange City, or Crestview, where I live, or Fort Walton, and I know these areas because I'm like, the max you can rent it is for this, the max you can rent it is for that, and the payment is already this. There's no spread there, or it's like a maybe 2% return on your money. It's just too much risk there, you know. And if you don't get it rented out right away, or it's just they're bad. They're bad, 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 bad. I do
It's not
not.
good for the end buyer. It's good for the seller, maybe if they're getting out of a situation, but the person that's wanting to buy it, they're going to be in a, it's just not going to benefit them.
But then here's the thing, then they can always just default on it, and then it's not the
Right.
borrower or the original borrower
Yeah.
because they could have payments being late. You know what I mean? If it's an inexperienced investor, you
And a
know,
lot of them are, because there's a lot of these, groups that they just make it sound, again, so easy. You don't can get in this with very little money down, but it's not true because they do have to pay expenses and stuff up front. There's, what they call it an entry fee, right?
entry. Yep. Yep. And
That's the
those
good
entry fees
one.
are high. Those entry fees are already high because when I
Yeah.
buy a subject to directly from a seller, my entry fees are much, much lower than that because your entry fee is going to tell you what your ROI is going to be. Your return on investment is going to be at the end of 12 months. If you're only cash flowing 200 bucks a month times 12, whatever that is, divided by how much your entry fee, that gives you your return on investment. It's usually like with some of these stuff on wholesale, less than 5%. You know, I don't, for me, that doesn't work for me. I mean, maybe it does for somebody, but it's too risky because if there's a vacancy, then that can be money out of pocket. And if it's money
Yeah.
out of pocket on an inexperienced investor that bought a subject to, they may just be late on the payments. And guess what? That affects that seller, that original seller.
Yeah, I've seen that happen a lot. Then they can't even afford the payments or, and I always tell them back to insurance, if they can't afford the insurance payment, then they probably can't afford the house because then they probably can't afford an expense. Like, they're still going to be responsible if the AC breaks, or something like that happens. And I just don't think a lot of them plan for the long, expenses that it happens, which is sad.
Yeah, it is. It's unfortunate because subject to over here in this area, it's got a bad rap because of that type of stuff. And
Hmm.
some title agents I've spoken with, don't even want to touch subject to because of bad experiences they had. But whenever I do it, bring it across with like, we know Andrea, she does a lot of my documents. Whenever I bring it
Hmm.
across with her, and we have all these process and documentation in place, everybody feels more comfortable because they know that we know how to handle the situation if something happens, you know.
That's correct. Yeah. And then have you ever had one or know somebody that's had a loan called due?
Yeah, so I'm in a mastermind and I have a mentorship program that I'm in.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, one of my coaches, she's done a ton of subject to. She's had it called due, but then it's as simple as showing the documentation that hey, your entity is servicing this debt for that borrower, and they don't always call it due. They don't always go through with it. They may
Right.
call it due like as in a threat, hey, we're going to call this due. But then
Mhm.
once you provide the documentation that, oh, it's in a land trust or it's being serviced and there's a renter in place and there's payment history, why would they continue on that? So I haven't had anybody actually, and then I think there was somebody else that said that they just cashed out refinance. I mean, you have plenty of time to,
There's choices. I think everybody thinks it's going to happen on the day one. I don't want this to call due. And I'm like, well, no,
yep,
no, no, it's not. You have all your documentation to show why you're doing this, why it's in a trust name. Provide that or have a plan and action if something does happen. So, because it's a risk, right? So if
exactly.
you get something, okay, don't panic, just follow your steps. Or call an
Exactly.
attorney. If an attorney guided you from the beginning, they would have given you some solutions to help you set it up correctly.
Exactly. That's another reason why I tell people subject to is not in a beginner strategy. In my opinion, it's a very advanced strategy.
It is.
I
Mhm.
haven't been doing real estate as long as some other people you may have interviewed, but I know this subject to is nothing new. My mentor's been doing subject to since well before it was even a thing, before wholesaling, before flipping, fixing and flipping was a thing. He's been doing subject to creative financing, private money, all those things. But he's a very well advanced, experienced real estate investor. So they know how to do it in documentations and contracts and everything. So it's definitely not for anybody new.
Yeah, and I've seen people lately because the interest rate challenge and stuff. That's how they're buying like their first home, and like it's a person who's like the end buyer, I guess, is the one who's going to live in it. And I've seen some crazy stuff where they like title it in that person's name, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it's just bizarre to me. And then that person that bought the house is totally confused. And then the person that sold them the house is totally confused as well because they're like, oh, I need this. And I'm like, well, I don't really talk to the seller, in insurance wise. So I've seen some crazy stuff going on, but it's probably just inexperienced people. And that is a really, like you said, it's a really advanced strategy to buy a home.
Yeah, and with insurance, you said too, like I'm dealing with this with insurances, as we were talking before, it's a lot of upkeep maintenance with insurances and make sure that the
Yes.
right people are listed on the insurance policy correctly. A matter of fact, I just had an insurance on one of the properties we did subject to. For somehow, some way, the original borrower got dropped off the insurance policy. And now I'm like, hey, we got to add him back on. And for some reason, the insurance wasn't being paid. So I don't know if it's because maybe his name wasn't on there. So we have to make sure that I mean, so far nothing has happened,
It can
but
happen.
it's a
Then you
lot
just
of,
call. A lot of times in insurance, when we call to, update the file for the client or collect the payment, they always ask us the name of who the loan's under. And then most time, if we just add it on there and send it, it's not a problem. I've only had one mortgage company, oddly enough, and I forget which one, who asked me to send the trust documents. I'm like, I don't even get those, but very few insurance companies ask for it, but we had to ask the client. And then we're reading through on the phone with the mortgage, rep saying it was just a customer service rep. And we're like, yeah, it says right here that person's the owner. I mean, in like the trust documents aren't the easiest to read, but if you see them all the time, you would know. And they're not experienced. And she was arguing, but it was clearly on there and they ended up updating it and paying it. But
right, right, right.
you
And
never
that might be
know.
what we have to do with this one. We might have to send Or maybe we need, I don't know if we did it, because sometimes they're asking for trust affidavits. I don't know if any of your insurance.
I haven't been asked for a trust affidavit, just
Okay,
trust
we've been,
documents. But maybe
yeah, I've
that's
been
the
doing
same
some of
thing.
those a lot.
Yeah.
There's a trust affidavit, and I'll have to send it to the trustee Commonwealth, and they'll do it. And I'm like, hmm. But yeah, that's why I've been kind of starting to switch more over to a lot of yours because I know you do more with the trusts and
It's
are more familiar
just,
with that.
yeah,
Not a
we
lot of
have.
insurance agents are very familiar with
They're
insurance
not a
stuff.
lot, and it's confusing, and it's knowing which mortgage companies and how to get it. Some of them are fine. You just send it, they'll pay it,
Sure.
regardless of the name. Others aren't, and you
Right.
never know what person you're going to get. So it's like trial and error.
Yeah, so that's what I've been dealing with a lot with, and that's another thing. If an inexperienced real estate investor that's thinking it's a get rich quick, oh yeah, let me buy this house subject
No,
to you. You got to make sure you're on top of those policies because those policies can lapse. They can put in another one, and then here's another thing: is once those policies they put in a lender's place policy
mhm.
that can really throw off your cash flow,
Can cost you thousands more.
cost you a lot of money. Uh,
Yeah, and then it doesn't really protect you, but yeah, they're no, they're not going to get rich the same day. I mean, it's going to take them some time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Years. You may not see that
Yes,
until years. I mean, it's just like any business. Any business you buy,
right.
any business you start, the first 5 years are going to be difficult.
Taking, yeah, it takes a lot of
Yeah.
time and effort, and you're working all the time. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing with real estate. So I tell people
Exactly.
it's a business.
The business, exactly.
Yeah, and they have to remember that. But I appreciate your time, Willie, and then I appreciate you for your serving our country in the Marines. I didn't know that, but for
Oh,
some
thank
reason
you.
I thought you were a Marine. You just have that look about you. Very streamlined. So I really appreciate it. I
Thank you.
appreciate your time on a Sunday coming and giving me all this details and information. And I know it's going to help the people that are listening and may live in that area and not even realize it, or in, here in Central Florida area as well.
Awesome.
So
Yeah,
thank
thank you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you too. I mean, I truly do appreciate it. I listen to your podcast occasionally and from time to time, and I was like, wow, this is really cool because I learn. I'm always listening to podcasts. So I truly
Me
am honored
too.
to be on your
I don't really
show.
watch much TV. I'd rather just listen.
Yeah,
Even
me
the
too.
shows. Yeah, it's
Yep.
distracting. Uh-huh.
There you go. That's true. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening and joining us. If you haven't already, please share, subscribe, and like our episodes and our podcast. Also, leave a review. It will be so helpful to us, and we would so appreciate it. Also, if you want to join us at any time, we're open to any guests joining us in person and on Zoom. We post and record episodes bi-weekly, so that's twice a month. Um, Also, they're posted on our socials, which is Facebook, Secured Insurance Group, Instagram, Colleen Insurance Lady. This podcast was hosted by myself, Miss Colleen Pacheco, and recorded and produced and edited by Sean Spazzato. Our podcast cover art was designed and created by Norma Pacheco, and our intro and outro music is created by Lounge Bar by Geronic. Goodbye.